In this video, I am joined by another fantastic panel. We got Seymour Duck, the Italiano. We're breaking down the annual shareholder meeting. Iger and the board versus Peltz and Rizzullo and Perlmutter. Crazy situation. We're going to break it down, talk about it, analyze it up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. Now, I just want a little disclaimer before we start the show. If you see me moving my head like this, my neck, I slept on my neck wrong. So it's killing me right now. So if you see any weird movements, that's why. But hey, don't get old, kids. Don't get old. You know what I'm saying? But
I'm glad you actually confirmed that, because I would have thought you were doing the Bartman.
Right, exactly. Do the Bartman. Yeah, exactly. We're totally aging ourselves right now, George. You know, I don't know if a lot of people remember that. I used to love that song, by the way.
It was great.
Man, it was awesome. It was awesome. But before we dive into our topic, I want to introduce my fantastic panel, the Italiano. George, welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. Glad to be back. And yeah, it's always a good time talking shop with you fellas. It's going to be a great time. Can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There it is, Mr. Sticky Icky. And down below, looking really dapper. I'm loving the new orange suit and the orange fedora. Seymour, looking really good, man.
Oh, thank you.
And it's good to have you back on, brother. If you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, glad to be back here. I'm excited to nerd out, and I'll be on. I'm on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
Make sure you follow Mr. Duck on X. Amazing insight into everything financial, but he does a lot of stuff about Disney, Nintendo. You definitely want to follow him on X, and I'll be linking it down below in the description. And
then for his picture, that's basically him saying to of the outcome of the shareholders meeting. It's like, hold my juice, I'm going on vacation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of the shareholder meeting, crazy stuff. Now, we've been covering this a lot on the channel, right? And we've had, we've talked about it, we've speculated a lot. Seymour, the outcome, it looks like Bob Iger and the board won, and according to Sherman over there at CNBC, he didn't win by a razor thin margin. I mean, it was pretty significant. Were you surprised by this outcome at all, or?
No. Like I mentioned in the previous video with you guys, Bob Iger were getting the support from the big shareholders. Nelson Peltz was not. He was getting the support from the small ones, like Jim Cramer. Bob Iger was getting the support from George Lucas, right? And like that what you have to convince the other shareholders is that the confidence in that. And when you have someone big like George Lucas coming in and supporting you, that makes a big difference among all the shareholders. Nobody's going to care about a little bit they would, but a lot of the support that Peltz was getting was from the previous companies that are not from the entertainment, that are not related, right? And that wouldn't be beneficial from the experience within Disney. So a lot of that didn't help. And also because like I mentioned before, when ISS gave his support for Peltz, it was only for Peltz. It wasn't for Jay Rizzullo, wasn't for anything that they mentioned in their 133 white page, except for one thing. And it was the succession. And I think that was lacking, because if that's all you can bring in the table, then if Bob Iger can fix that, then that's basically it. You don't really need Peltz.
Yeah, you're right. It was the ISS thing was kind of a tepid support, right? Because it split it up. They didn't want Rizzullo, and like you said, it was basically a one trick pony kind of thing with the succession. Yeah, it was pretty lukewarm, absolutely. And on the other side, Iger and the board, they had like you said, actual investors like George Lucas, the widow of Steve Jobs. These are people with actual shares in the company and stuff, like huge amounts invested into this company. And yeah, it's interesting. And I heard not only did Peltz, lose, but I'm hearing this is actually one of the worst showings that he's had at one of these attempts.
What was it? 31% for Peltz?
Seymour, do you have that number? I'm not really sure, George.
I don't have the exact numbers, but it was 2-for-1.
2-for-1. 2-for-1. So interesting stuff, man. Now, okay, so the vote happened. Now, leading up to the vote, though, we got a bunch of leaks. Okay, and the first leak was, hey, and we talked about it on the video the other day, or a few days ago. Peltz is in the lead, right? Or Peltz was leading. And then we got another leak saying from the same outlet, it was, I think, Wall Street Journal, saying, hey, you know what? Now Iger's leading. And then another leak saying Iger is really pulling away from Peltz in the board, and he's leading by a pretty decent margin. Seymour, what are your thoughts on these leaks? Because it kind of led into some drama, right? A little bit once the vote came through with this Bill Ackman guy and things like that. What are your thoughts on these leaks?
Here's the first thing is, like, you can accuse anyone aimlessly without any proof. So I don't know if Peltz leaked or Disney leaked or anyone leaked, or maybe it was just someone working as the third-party advisory that was supposed to, take care of the votes leaked. I don't know. You're innocent until proven guilty. So we can make all these accusations that somebody leaked, but we don't know who did. But right? And so I find this ridiculous, right? With these accusations that Disney leaked. Because that's what I'm hearing. Like, oh, they leaked. No.
And Seymour, this is the thing that frustrates me, right? Because like you said, we don't know who leaked, right?
Yeah.
This is the thing that frustrates me with this. There's this thing where it's almost like with the Peltz crowd, I'm seeing a lot of this where it's like when it's bad for Disney, it's totally legit on the up and up, right? There's no question about any of it when it works against Iger and the Walt Disney Company. The minute anything goes the way they don't like, though, whether it's George Lucas throwing his support behind the current board or whatever it is, suddenly all the conspiracy theories come out, right? Now suddenly it's like this Alex Jones, like DAnon, like, oh, what's going on? George Lucas was like, swindled into supporting Iger, and there's all these like, sinister little backroom deals and the whole thing. And the same thing happened when he won. It was like the same thing. They trotted out the same kind of these conspiracy theories where it's like, oh, it was Disney who leaked this, and there's like no evidence of that.
No,
if you have evidence of that, bring it forth. That's fine. But we don't. That's just people are just throwing it out there, it's crazy.
Hearsay.
Right? Exactly.
Also, I was going to say that we actually don't know if the leaks were even true at the time. So if Peltz actually was in the lead or not, like, these could just be fake news because you heard it from a source. We don't even know who the source is. A source familiar with the matter. That's not giving much.
It's true. And I've said it before. I mean, anytime they're sourcing like that, a source familiar with the matter, someone close to the situation. I've been following politics for so many years. I mean, since I was like a teenager, even like really young, I've always been into politics. And, most of the time when I see sourcing like that, I kind of blow it off because it's flimsy, it's flimsy. George, what are your thoughts on this, man? The leaks and the whole situation.
Yeah, it's like it's a big contradiction where it's like you see one side where of the spectrum where you could say, okay, Disney won, but why? Like, what made them win? They have to have something up their sleeve. Something was rigged, something was pulled, something was leaked, yada yada yada. But at the same time, why couldn't people on the other side say, hey, ISS backed up Peltz? Why? It's like, what did somebody swindle them into backing Peltz up? So we could say the same thing too. It's just like, why can't they just say, hey, ISS backed Peltz up? Hey, George Lucas, the widow to Steve Jobs, they just backed up Iger. And we've said it so many times on the channel. What more could Iger give George Lucas and the widow of Steve Jobs? Really, honestly.
Well, supposedly because George Lucas's wife is on the J.P. Morgan board, and Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan, supported Bob Iger a week before. Therefore, he must have, or that company must have pressured Melody, which is George Lucas's wife, to vote a certain way. And again, these are conspiracy theories. There's zero evidence of this. Zero evidence of this. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Seymour.
no one ever came out and made any kind of official statement whether one side or not was true. So being that they didn't, chances are it was just, hey, George Lucas backing up the Walt Disney Company.
Well, go ahead, Seymour. I'm sorry, brother.
All right, I just wanted to add to that because we were talking with George Lucas. George Lucas actually owns his shares. Just going back to like how the Disney investors are supporting Bob Iger, and that's why I believe that he won, because of that. Peltz is a Wall Street guy. He's in it there for the short term, and then sells within 1 to 2 years. Him and his company only bought Disney in 2022, and only bought 800 million worth. That is tiny. The total voting rights they had was 3.5 billion. That's only because of Ike Perlmutter. So when you think about it, are you really there for Disney if you can't even yourself put that much money? They went in and bought $2 billion worth of Pepsi back in 2015 or 14. And within 2 years after the fighting with them, they sold it for profits, short profits. So I don't like that. That's the type of people you see with them. So it's like, of course he won, and because you're not putting where your mouth is. It's tiny, and you're only there for the short term to pump it and sell it. So what was even the point of this whole proxy fight?
Yeah, it was a pump and dump, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing too is like, I look right now. I think it's changing. I think Disney is rebounding, but I think they're leading up to this, the past year or so or more even. I think there is a hunger out there, a thirst for some change or some bold moves, right? At the Walt Disney Company. The fact that Peltz couldn't tap into that. I mean, that shows how, look, if you're a Peltz fan, there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is like he ran a bad campaign, and it's okay to say like, look, you know what? I support Peltz and Rizzullo, but he didn't do a good job, right? I think he could have done a lot better. I think he would have got a lot more support. He didn't have a plan. The plan that he had, like Seymour has said so many times, was basically just kind of copying what Iger was already doing. The merging Hulu with Disney Plus, all that stuff. He had nothing going for him. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think I think the people that support Peltz get off the conspiracy theory train and blame the person that really deserves the blame is your boy Peltz. He should have ran a better campaign, period. And he didn't. Well, go ahead, George. I do apologize.
Really quick, which goes to show you that in the long run, he had no intention of really wanting to help run the Walt Disney Company. As Seymour said so many times, he had like one thing in mind, and that's like the typical Peltz fashion. He comes in, does his thing, sells his shares or whatever, and then leaves. It's like all that. He never was coming into the intent on ever really fixing the company. I'm just going to say it like that. It's a bold statement because, again, if he really did, you would think that whatever Iger was saying, you would take it one step further. But if you're going to equal base yourself to him, then you might as well just let Iger do his thing.
Well, and that's why I think the votes went the way they went, because it's exactly that. He didn't bring anything to the table. He didn't bring anything to the table. Now, go ahead, Seymour.
I was going to say, and he wasn't holding the shares for long, only 2022. George Lucas has been holding them since he sold Star Wars, Lucasfilms, and right, and like you see these people who have been holding them, they don't want to see it get destroyed by someone who came in just 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and people conflate this stuff too. They misinterpret. Like, it's funny because people say like, Disney's destroying Star Wars and this, that, and the other. And you can have any opinion on Star Wars. I'm not a big Kathleen Kennedy fan. I got to be honest. If it was up to me, I'd get someone else in there to run Lucasfilm. I would. I'm not a huge Kathleen Kennedy fan. There's been mistakes made. But the thing is that people sort of take a vote for Iger as like this, like sort of like this, like all-encompassing support of every decision Bob Iger and the company has made. And that's not what it is. Like George Lucas went into this and he looked at it like we did and said, yeah, Iger is not perfect. Obviously, George Lucas has some issues with Bob Iger and certain decisions, I'm sure, with what they've done with Lucasfilm. But him getting behind Iger on the board wasn't that he supports everything Bob Iger did or has done. It was, hey, these are the options I have, and Iger's better than this one.
Well, and I think it needs to be said too that every time when someone's saying, okay, they're leaning more towards Iger, that it's because it's specifically for Iger, and it's missing the point that no, it's what's in the best interest for the Walt Disney Company. That when you take two people like Iger and Peltz, it's like which one is a better fit right now. Not saying Iger doesn't have his faults, not saying Iger messed up on some things, not saying that Iger needs to be around for the next 20 years. Obviously not. No. As OG, you had said it, I said it, Seymour said it, like everyone has said it. It's not the notion of saying that Iger has done everything perfect. It's in the compare and contrast to Peltz. He is the better fit right now. So if you lean more towards Iger, it's not saying that you are a fanboy of Iger. It's just to the fact of what is best for the Walt Disney Company.
Right, exactly. Now, Seymour, after this annual meet, right, Iger won, Iger and the board won, and Peltz essentially conceded, but Peltz said, hey, you know what, I'm keeping an eye on you kind of thing, But that day, I think the day after, the stock went down, what was it, like 3%. And a lot of people were kind of like touting this, like, oh my God, look at the stock went down 3%. It must be because Peltz lost. And what are your thoughts on that? I know you have some thoughts. I'll let you tell the audience your opinion on this.
That's, that in a way kind of true, but it's ridiculous to make that claim, because at the end of the day, it was just, it was buying the rumor and then selling the news event. And 3% is not a lot. For some reason, apparently that was like the sky was falling because 3% was down. But then I see like Warner Brothers 3% down the day before. I saw Paramount down 9% today. And then the day before I saw Nintendo down 4%. And a lot of the times people say it's just because of the market. And yet, so we have an event, a massive event, and you only sold off 3%. That is nothing. That's a blip in the radar. Because if you zoom out from the bottom, the stock went up 50%. Even after that 3%. So I'm not understanding. We still have 50% way down to go in order to basically say that Bob Iger destroyed the stock. Because that's what I'm hearing on X, that the sky is falling, but it's not.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff, Seymour, I got to be honest, is just kind of saving face. A lot of people were kind of putting all their eggs in one basket, and they needed to find something where, they needed to find some kind of win or some sort of vindication. And okay, the stock went down 3%. That's all. That's all we got.
And and the unfortunate part, it doesn't matter whose side you're on. If you're on Peltz or Iger, Disney, not a Disney fan. The unfortunate part is that a lot of people are not knowledgeable in the finance, even for the simplest like stock numbers. So when they see something down 3%, they panic. It's normal. Like that type of movement, that little wobble is normal in the stock market. I've seen Tesla go down 5%, and people are saying like, you don't need to panic. Why are we panicking? This is all normal. And unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people will share that panic as if it's true. Like that's why people are selling. Like, it's the traders, the short-term holders that are selling out. If Bob Iger really did do something dramatic to tank the stock, you would have seen it down 20%, at least above 9%, because you see Paramount down 9% today, and tumbleweeds. Nobody cared about it. Oh, and then the excuses I've heard, we already know that Paramount was going to die, so it doesn't matter. What?
Right, exactly. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly.
What I think is kind of funny is like when you see all the stocks dropping, like for whatever the reason is, but it's like Yeah, there could be a stock that could drop 26%. There could be another one that can drop 33%, but Disney drops 3 and it's like, oh my gosh, the Walt Disney Company's doomed. And it's like, even to me, like as excuse me, as Seymour was saying, like unless you actually know, the finances like of Wall Street and what have you. And I'll admit it, I'm not a finance guy. I'm not like I started following like the stock and really like as I started buying stock into Disney at a later age, but I was one that never really followed the Wall Street and what have you. But I mean, even to a novice greenhorn like myself, I know that 3% isn't a big deal. It goes up and down, it balances, and you're not going to have a stable stock number that's just going to like flatline all the way through. It's impossible with any company.
Yeah, and I've been because it's been going up a lot. Like it's been trending up since that earnings call back in like February.
Mm-hmm.
And I always see the argument on X is like, well, it's going to go down. Yeah, it's going to go down. Disney will have days where it goes down. That's what the stock market does. It goes up, it goes down. But it's what the important thing to notice with this stuff is the trend line. Yeah, it's going to go down on Monday. It might go up on Monday. I mean, it might go down. It might go up on Monday. It might go down on Tuesday. It'll as long as you're trending up, though, that's good. And that's what Disney's doing. Just like I don't even know, a few months ago, they were down to like. What was it, Seymour? Like before that earnings call, down to like $80-something a share or something.
Yeah, I think that the bottom was 79 the last 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. And look where it's at now. It's like I think it closed out today at like 117 or something like that.
Yeah, and people on X were saying that Peltz is the reason why the stock is up $100. I'm like, actually, like you said, the earnings call it went up 11.5% and it broke that $100 barrier. That's the reason why it kept going up. Because of their strong earnings. The one that people were saying that Bob Iger was pulling a fast one on us. They're not. And to be honest, if you actually want to see what happened to Disney, like a bad drop, when it was Bob Chapek's last earnings call, the day after the stock went down, at a certain day, it went down 20%. But at the end of the day, it went down 18%. And that's why the shareholders panicked. The board of directors panicked. Right, and that's why he got fired, because they saw that the shareholders were not confident with Bob Chapek and what they were doing, and you could see in the numbers why, because he was spending so much money. He was spending it like if it was like a startup, and it was tarnishing the brand of Disney, like the premium brand, as if you're just taking all that money and just like taking all that spaghetti and throwing and see if it works. It was really bad, and it was one of his biggest downfalls. But that was down 20%. 3% is nothing.
Right. Exactly. The 20%, that's like you were saying, Seymour, that's when something is going wrong.
Yeah.
That's it. The 3% that happens I've seen it go down 2 and 3% like on a random Tuesday sometimes, I mean, and like you were saying, this is a big event. And, and for it to only lose 3%, and like you said too, a lot of this stuff is you buy on the rumor and you sell on the news. Very normal stuff. And even on that though, it didn't even lose that much, So it's interesting. Now I want to talk to you guys too about, because the succession stuff has been really in the news lately. Leading up to this annual meeting, they've been doing a lot of pieces on Dana Walden. You know what I'm saying? And we were thinking, like, maybe they'll give us some news. They didn't at this annual meeting. They didn't give us any news on succession. But what are your thoughts on that whole thing, Seymour? What do you make of that? Like, the media really seems to be kind of focusing on Dana. Do you think that's some like Disney leaking this, or it's like they're sort of like weather ballooning her to see what the reaction is like, or is it just speculation on the media part?
I wouldn't be surprised, because a lot of companies, what they do is leak to the press in order to get a taste of what people are feeling. Tech companies do this all the time at products. They leak their own images of an unreleased product, right? And then a blog would talk about it. And then you hear it all over on social media, but it was them who leaked it. Google does it. Apple does it. They all do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because they wanted to hear if people liked her, if she would be a good fit. I would not be surprised. And I looked at her background. I still need to do more research, but it's nice to see someone that had a background that was in Disney, like Fox. She worked at Fox, And I really like that because I mentioned in previous videos way in the past that Disney has matured. It's not just for kids. It's not just those IPs. It's like a entertainment for all ages now. You know, a multi-generational where we were fans of Disney as a kid and now we're an adult. And now it comes to the point where the company is realizing that we have to cater to all of them now because they've been fans since they were born. And you see that with sports, you see that with the FX and Fox division, right? And I think that would be good for pivot that company in that direction of more mature and broadening it out while still having Disney brand identity intact, because that's very important. You do not want to lose that.
Yeah.
Silly duck. Disney's for kids.
Disney's for kids. Yeah. What do you think, George? In terms of Dana Walden, you think they're weather ballooning this, where they're testing it? Or?
Yeah, I think they're kind of throwing it out there without actually like giving the full sense that it is them. They're trying to test the waters to kind of see where people's headspaces are at and, you know, how they kind of see her. Because, I mean, she was in the talk of like in the running for CEO for quite some time when it was like kind of just between her and Tomorrow when Iger would take them to award shows. They both went him to a field trip, so to speak, to Disneyland Paris. And so now there's like 4 people running. More people might come into the equation. But I have to say, out of the 4, that she was my top contender. And I will say, I'll admit, I'll eat crow when it's necessary. But what just kind of dipped for me a little bit was in the moment was her full on support to Kathleen Kennedy. Now, after I took some time to kind of reassess that notion, if that is the case, really, whether Dana Walden is CEO and whether she supports Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger's still CEO, and yet Kathleen Kennedy is still in Lucasfilm. So, I mean, like, really, what's the difference?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, and I got to look into that again because I forgot where that news came from. I want to double check on that and make sure it was from something credible,
from a credible source,
right? And not like
right. But even into the notion, like, obviously Kathleen Kennedy is still in the company,
yeah, exactly.
And for some reason, they don't want to let her go. I mean, Indiana Jones: Dial of Destiny ended up losing around like $130 million. And yet, we were all saying, if that movie fails, that's going to be her nail in the coffin, so to speak.
Well, here
she is, still there. I mean, the girl's got 9 lives. It's like,
I'm telling you. And here's the thing too. It's interesting because, and I've done it before, where I'm like, okay, so we have these 4 candidates, right? We got Daddy Josh from the parks, we got Dana Walden, Alan Bergman, and Pitaro from ESPN. These are they say the in-house talent, right? That they're looking at for Succession. But in a weird way, and I don't know enough about Pitaro, I got to look more into him. But in a weird way, like Dana though is kind of like what Seymour was saying. She's kind of almost an outsider though, because she came from Fox. When they bought Fox, and that's pretty recent. I mean, I know she's been there now since I think they finalized that Fox deal in 2019, I believe, or something like that. So she's only been in there for like 4 or 5 years. Compare that to like a Bob Chapek, who was there for 30 years before he became CEO. So she's kind of an outsider. I mean, she's technically an insider, but she's kind of, you know what I'm saying? And same kind of for Tom Staggs and Kevin Meyer, because yes, they worked for Disney for a while, but then they've been away from the company for a while. Coming back, they're almost like outsiders now. So it's not so cut and dry with some of these candidates. You know what I'm saying? On how we kind of, analyze it.
And then you were kind of saying too, OG, that was not, isn't confirmed, but this was just a possibility, folks. Okay. This isn't like a guarantee. When OG says something, it doesn't mean it's rubber stamp of approval here. So
we speculate here. We have fun speculating. Everything isn't like set in stone, like the 10 Commandments. Like, come on.
In OG, we trust.
Yeah, jeez.
But you were saying too that, what if after they bring on a new CEO, what if they were to bring back the president of the Walt Disney Company position as well? Because I believe Ron Miller was he was president, I think, of the company for quite some time. Diane's husband, I believe. Don't quote me on it. I think he was. But I do think having a little bit of that leverage, so to speak, where you kind of have like a position down from the CEO that can kind of like take some of the pressure off of things. I think that maybe, it would be a benefit for them to bring that position back.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like that idea. I've said for a long time, I would like to have two people kind of running the company, Now, obviously a CEO president position isn't exactly equal, but it's close enough where I think it would give you that kind of that balance. So if, let's say they go with Dana Walden, okay, then you bring back the president position and you maybe make Kevin Meyer or Tom Staggs president. That's a solid team right there. That's a really solid team right there. What do you think about that, Seymour? Because Disney hasn't had a president in a long time. I don't even know how long. It's been a long, long time. What are your thoughts on kind of bringing back that position and sort of, giving a little checks, getting some check on power in terms of the CEO?
I like the idea of co-CEOs, to be honest. Better than just bringing back the president position.
Interesting.
Like even right now, for Netflix, they have co-CEOs because it takes a lot of power just to run one company that big. For Disney, it's the same thing. The company is huge, and when I look at Bob Chapek and I looked at the stuff he did, if he just did parks and we had someone else that did entertainment, I think the company would have been fine. Because I think that's where his expertise was at the parks.
Right.
And you needed someone like Tom Staggs to come in and work with him because it's such a big company. So if they did that, I would be all for it because when you have two heads are better than one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, okay, so staying on Succession, when do you think we're going to hear about this? Because, I was hearing rumors maybe by the end of this year. So I've heard some rumors out there saying 2025. This is the thing. Iger, there's a lot of pressure right now, though, with the Succession thing because Peltz, that whole situation, it put a lot of pressure on that. Like, Seymour, what are your thoughts on that? Like, when do you think we can realistically hear who the next CEO is going to be?
It really depends on the path they're going for. If they're picking someone on the inside or someone on the outside. And I really prefer if they pick someone on the outside. I don't know if it's going to happen. Yeah, there was like good contenders. I know people who are willing to leave companies, big, huge companies like Pepsi, that would leave them and just work at Disney because of the iconic brands and how like the legacy they bring. So like I've been touting like even CEOs from like Mattel or the ex Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aimé, like these guys, businesses, and they understand entertainment. I wouldn't mind if they bring it in, because if they bring in someone from the outside, you would have to announce it sooner so they can understand how the company works within that year. You can't just have Bob Iger coming in like, yeah, I'm retiring in 2006, and then you announce it right away. I rather have someone that can shadow you, understand the company, not go in and rush, because I don't want anything to be rushed. If you rush, you get another Bob Chapek.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I really do. I hope it's sooner than later, but where it's not, again, a knee-jerk reaction of sooner, but like where they really can kind of take their time, but not spend a whole lot of time, where, as Seymour said, the year that Bob is leaving, that's when they decide, and then Bob leaves, and then you just throw this person into the lion's den, and it's like, okay, good luck. And it's like, this next person needs to be able to shadow him, take notes, follow him around, go through the routine, the schedule, the techniques. They need that, because again, this isn't a company that's just like a one and done sort of thing, sort of like with Pepsi, or just something that's just business. Like you have a running studio, you have theme parks, you have cruise ships, you have a sports network, you have a streaming platform. There's so much that goes into the Walt Disney Company that you can't expect anybody, I don't care who it is, whether it's someone that's been on the inside for 30 years like Chapek or someone on the outside, they still need that training. Because I'm always one that says, and I'm going to get a little political here, when someone says, are they eligible to run for president? You know, are they technically, nobody is eligible to run for president in a sense unless they were already president, because they already know the ins and outs. So when you have all these people coming in and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to run for president. Okay, well, what's your eligibility? Well, we're kind of learning as we go. Until you're actually president or CEO or what have you, you'll never know what it's like until you're actually in that position.
That's a great point they bring up, George. You can prepare someone all you want, and they should do that, absolutely. But you're right. It's almost like having a kid. It's like you can prepare and read all the books about parenting and all this stuff. Until you have that kid, though, you know what I'm saying? It's that you're never really ready until you have the kid, you know? And you kind of learn as you go. And it's kind of the same with this thing. I mean, Bob Iger could prepare this next person and give them all the textbook knowledge about running the Walt Disney Company. But until that person's at that desk running it, you know? So it's interesting. Now, it was funny. Bob Iger sat down today with CNBC. Okay, and I've said many times, I've made no secret about it. I don't know why he does this to himself. I guess he likes the folks over there at CNBC. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but he sat down today with them, and the gentleman asked Iger today, like, what's going on with the succession plan? Like, you know, like, do you have any news for us in regards to the succession? And Iger said, well, you know, I mean, we're working on it and we're taking it very seriously. We got the succession committee, what have you. But a lot of it was like, I can't really answer that, is basically what Iger was saying. I felt like this was a gotcha question from CNBC in a lot of ways. I'm curious your opinion on this, Seymour, because it was like, obviously, Iger can't divulge into what the board is discussing in regards to this succession. Iger can't tell you who's in the lead, who's the main candidate right now. He can't give you any of that. And the CNBC guy knows that. He knows that. So you put Bob Iger in this corner where he's forced to say, I can't answer that, I can't answer that, I can answer that. And then you have all these YouTubers and all these people on X and everything saying, oh, see, he's not going to leave. He's kicking the can. It's like, no, he's not. He can't get in there and be like, yeah, I had a meeting with everyone yesterday, and you know what, Daddy Josh ain't cutting it, but hey, Dana Walden looks pretty good. He's not going to do that. So what did the CNBC interviewer, what did they expect to gain from that other than it being a gotcha question? That's just my opinion, but what were your thoughts on that, Seymour, in terms of that whole exchange with the...
Yeah, they're snakes. That's pretty much it. Because, like, think about it. You're not going to get much different information than we got in the shareholder meeting. And the same thing when he goes on and it gets interviewed. One, he has the earnings call. It's the same thing. Unless there's really big announcements they just announced the same day, you're not really going to get anything different.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't understand why I mean, I do understand why, but they're fishing for some type of news story to get them and get that gotcha moment. But in reality, I don't know. That Bob Iger, though, today, that interview was really strong. I think it was one of his best. His previous ones were pretty slacking, but this one, no. This one, I felt like he was actually like, I'm not taking any shit from you.
Good. You know, I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw that the exchange that was shared to us through the DMs, but I didn't watch the whole interview. But he was pretty tough though this time around. He wasn't taking any shit. Oh, good. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. He kind of snapped back when he had to. Like, he stood his ground. And I think, in a way, to actually kind of answer your question, OG, I think maybe that's what keeps drawing Iger back to CNBC. Because sometimes it gives you the persona that if just to say he happens to go on ABC, well, it's like, okay, then Iger's biased. You know, of course he's going to go on ABC. You know, he's going to go to the parent company of Disney. So I think if he goes on CNBC, like, who would be the worst news candidate that can actually interview Iger? And he's like, well, CNBC. And it's like, you want to interview me? Bring it on.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. You're right about that, George. Like, yeah, you go into unfriendly territory, and it gives you a little bit more credibility, right? Because you have a pushback. You go on ABC News, he's literally being interviewed. Like, the person interviewing him is literally his employee. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so there is a bias there. And then that would taint the whole thing. You're right. But like Seymour said, just go on Bloomberg then.
Yes.
Problem solved. But why are you going to Comcast Universal? It's your biggest competitor. You know what I'm saying?
guess it's just more so, as I said, it's like, I don't know if he feels like he has something to prove.
Yeah.
Or
Maybe.
like it's just that competitive side to him. But again, if you're going to do that, that's fine. But again, you have to be ready of not knowing what the questions or how they're going to back you into a corner, because if you end up shooting yourself in the foot, it's your own damn fault.
Right. Exactly. Now, last question of the day. Peltz said, I mean, Peltz conceded essentially. He said, okay, you know, you win some, you lose some, basically, right? But he did say, though, he's going to keep an eye on the Walt Disney Company. He's going to keep an eye and make sure that that the promises are kept and that things, you know, keep moving on upward and what have you. Seymour, what are your thoughts on, because he left the door open. He cracked that door open just enough to basically kind of say, like, look, you know what? If it goes south again, there might be another one of these. What are your thoughts on the chances of that even occurring?
It's a waste of time and money. It's just not worth it. You're already lost unless something really dramatic happens. And I'm sure everyone else is going to voice their opinions as well, not just him, right? All these shareholders are going to, if something really truly bad happened at the Disney company, I'm sure there'll be other proxy fights coming in, not just him, like Blackwell's that came in. That's going to happen. But for him, if he sees something wrong, it's just himself and his company, then it's just a waste of time and money. Because like we already stated, like it was 2-1 that the majority of the Disney shareholders voted for Bob Iger and the company. And if nothing has really changed, then there's no point of fighting it any further.
Yeah.
No. Yet, apparently they're going to look into these votes. I don't know. Bill Ackman said that. I don't know. They're going to speak with the SEC, but I don't trust Bill Ackman. So.
Yeah. No. So they are going to. Did the SEC comment on this at all in terms of these?
Of course not. No. I don't know if it was all for show, but that's what Bill Ackman does. He pretends that he's there for the people. And saying that, oh, we need to take down Disney because they fake their votes. No, listen. He doesn't. No, he's not there for you. He's a rich billionaire that only cares about himself. And if this helps Peltz, and then Peltz helps Elon, it's all a connection. And at the end of the day, it'll make him better with connections and making him rich. I remember. Sorry.
Oh no. Go ahead, Seymour. Get finished.
I was just gonna say I remember Bill Ackman that I invested in his blank check company back in 2022. He had $6 billion worth, and he was going to merge. It's a public company, but it's blank check, and they look for private companies to merge. And I put some money in. I bought 500 shares at $23, right? It's not a lot of money to me, but a lot to some people, it is. And he said he was going to merge with Universal Music, and I found that like very undervalued because a lot of people were investing like in ridiculous companies. You know, they had GameStop that was not making any money. It was pumping up. AMC pumping up. Bed Bath & Beyond, Build-A-Bear. And these companies were not making as much money. But Universal Music, because like if you think about it, they just license their music to Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music. They make all those money in royalties. And so I thought that was great. But, you know, at the end of the day, Bill Ackman's like, fuck you. I'm going to take all the shares for myself. And everyone in this owned the shares got tanked. They went down. It went from $30 to $25. Mine average was 23, and then down to 20 pre-IPO, the IPO price. And then everyone, that's your refund for getting in stock because everything else was just pumped up. And a lot of people lost their money. We used to be huge fans of Bill Ackman. People on Reddit were saying that he was the next Warren Buffett because he's finding undervalued companies like Universal Music, and he's letting the retail investors. But no, he said he screwed everyone that invested and kept the shares for himself. And he said, sorry, I had a little legal trouble, so I'm going to take the burden and keep the shares. What the?
So Seymour, by Ackman kind of having this reputation and these businesses and companies see that and know that, would they actually take him serious by if he made that statement, whether he was just bluffing or if he's going to look into it? Or are they just going to say, okay, well, let's just let him do what he wants, because at the end of the day, he's going to be wasting his time, just like basically how this whole entire proxy battle was a waste of time, because it wasn't going anywhere for Peltz from the very beginning because he had no initial plan.
It would be just a waste of time. It really would. That's what he does a lot of the times with these companies. And in reverse, what he does is that he looks for bad news within a company, and then he tries to short the company so that he's betting that the company will fall, to get destroyed, so that he can get rich from it. So I don't trust this guy, because he's not there for the company. He's there for the company to get destroyed. And he does that a lot of the time just to make him look better, to make him look rich, and make better connections with the other rich people. No, he's not there for you. He's not your friend. It's the same thing with Nelson Peltz. He's not your friend. When they're there investing into the company just recently and now having a proxy fight, this was a waste of time. This was a waste of money. And if he does it again, people are just going to get frustrated and say, no, leave us alone.
Yeah.
So do you think he will go through with it, or do you think it's just all talk? It's just a bluff?
No, I think it's all talk. It was very weird. Elon Musk gave his support after the votes ended. It was very sloppy. I think they were trying to get everything all together at the last minute, and it didn't happen. So then Bill Ackman came in and said, hey, I think the votes are leaked by Disney, even though the first votes were Peltz and he got it wrong. And then professional people in the media were even calling him out. No, I think it's all talk. Unless he actually owned shares in Disney and not shorting Disney. I don't know if he is, but I'm just saying, if he actually owned a huge amount of, that would make a significant vocal point. But I think he's just there. It's not going to go anywhere.
That was interesting too, Seymour, that the Elon thing was really weird. Like after the vote, he chimed in and said, I think that Peltz should be on the board. Where was he during the vote? Why didn't he say anything earlier? That was really strange to me.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I remember people on X making conspiracy theories that there was a picture of Nelson Peltz and Elon, and they were saying, oh, Elon bought shares in Disney. Peltz is getting on the board. That never happened.
No. Oh, Elon has problems of his own he needs to worry about. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is crazy the last thing Elon needs is to get involved with Disney. He should worry about X and Tesla,
Yeah, the company not doing so well. It's like down 30% year to date. It's the worst performing. Like, there's like the top 7 like companies that are in the S&P 500, and it's called the Magnificent Seven. And Tesla was in that list, and they are the only company that has been falling year to date. Everyone else, Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, they're all up. NVIDIA, tremendously up. Great work. But Tesla down.
It's fun. It's ironic that ever since he told Iger to go fuck himself, Disney stock has been on the up and his stock has been on the down. It's just irony to me. It really is. But I want that. I want him nowhere near Disney.
And Iger took the high road, of not engaging in Peltz's, not Peltz's, Elon Musk's antics and crude.
Well, he even said that today. Didn't he say that on the CNBC interview? Because I think they asked him like, "What do you make of the Elon thing?" He's like, "We just ignore him."
Yeah, it's like, go ahead, like spew your hate, spew your ignorance. It's like you're wasting your own breath, and it's like that's the best thing to do is just turn the other cheek.
It's like with content creation, or with even just being just a user on X or something, right? There's going to be people that come to you and be like constructively say, try to help you, right? Like in the comment section or on X and say, hey, you know what? That tweet wasn't so great. You could have worded it better. This constructive criticism, and those people you should listen to. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. They help you, but then you're just going to have the trolls and the assholes. They're just going to be like, oh yeah, fuck you, in the comments and just name call and trash you. Those people you ignore. And I think Bob Iger, because a lot of people that support Elon are gonna paint this as like, well, Iger's closed off to other opinions. It's not the case. Elon is a troll. he's not constructive in anything that he does. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, he told Bob Iger to go F himself. Why would Iger entertain this man at all? You know what I'm saying? Why would he entertain? He's not a serious person. So, if you want to come to the table and be constructive, I think Iger would be more than happy to, listen to you. But I mean, if you're just going to be a troll and name call and stuff, ignore. I mean, if it happens on my channel, I'm just gonna ignore people that do that, or on X. I mean, everyone should, So I think you're right, George. Iger made the right move on that, or said the right thing with that, because you don't want to listen to a guy like that, man. And especially when his own companies are not even, gosh, man,
not even up to par. I mean, look at them; they're declining big time. So I don't even know really what he has anything to say about. It's like, I think instead of worrying about what other people are doing that's being more successful, worry about some of your companies that you're literally pile driving them into the ground.
Yeah. He attacks progressives, which is fine. You want to do that, but then you sell electric cars. Well, it's going to be the progressives that are more into the green energy stuff. So what do you think you're doing there? So the whole thing. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into it long, but
I find it funny because when he was talking about Nelson Peltz, he said that he has a proven track record, and I laughed at that.
We've talked about his track record on the show, haven't we, Seymour?
Yeah, and a lot of people on, like, even on CNBC and everything, they talk about it publicly. Even on Puck, I've seen them talk about it too, about his track record, and yeah, it's lackluster.
Well, I don't know about the terms perfect and record, but as far as track, it's more like of a derailment.
There you go. Well said, George. Well said. Gentlemen, it is always an honor nerding out with you guys. Really good conversation. Oh, go ahead, Seymour. I do apologize.
I just wanted to end my remarks saying that Disney and Bob Iger, I think they're going on the right path. I think the plan that he has in place, Bob Iger, everything's going what it's supposed to be going. The only thing that I would like to see is the succession plan, and see who. And if they take their time, I'm okay with that, because I don't want it to be rushed. But that's the only thing, that the final piece of the puzzle that needs to be complete for Disney to go back on track. That's the only thing that I
agree.
think.
Yeah, I agree. I think they need to take their time and not rush, but don't keep beating around the bush too much. You want to find that middle ground. You want to find that sweet spot.
Yeah, you want to take your time and find the right person. You don't want to just find a person to fill the spot. You want to find the right person. And they need to, because they've already had an issue with the Chapek thing. They can't afford to have another situation like that, But you also, at the same time, and this is where it becomes difficult, at the same time, though, you don't want Bob Iger renewing 2 and 3 times. So it's tough. It's tough. Hopefully we hear this year who the person is. We'll see. Go ahead, George.
And I think Bob Iger definitely is learning from his mistakes from the first time around. I think everything that he did moving in Chapek as he was moving out is going to be the complete opposite of what of Iger, the 2.0 that came back, as far as, getting all his affairs in order correctly. So that way none of this happens again on his watch. Because I seriously doubt he'll come back and do this for a third run. And he doesn't want to do that. But at the same time, for his legacy's sake, he's not going to want to have his name on the rise and fall of the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah, no, he's got to get it right, for, like you said, for his own legacy. This would be the second time. If he messes this up again, oh, man. And that's terrible. Now, I am curious, though, the relationship that him and Chapek have now, because I felt like I saw a clip. I see a lot of clips on Twitter, but I didn't watch the whole thing. But I saw a clip where he kind of defended Chapek today. He was like, saying how, Chapek kind of came in at a really bad time, and our company got hit worse than a lot of other companies did, because we have movies and sports and theme parks and stuff. I was kind of surprised to hear him kind of like defend Chapek, like saying like there was a lot of these external factors at play, because it was very clear there was a lot of tension between these two men, but maybe that's thought out a little bit. Maybe they're a little bit cooler behind the scenes. I don't know.
It could be one of actually a couple of things that I thought of, because I heard that too as well when I watched the interview, is he could be cool with Chapek. He could have just used that as a strategy, not knowing how CNBC would spin that. So he could just kind of like left it as is. Or it's like, like that term, like if you work with one of your family members, you're much more closer with them if you don't work with them than if you do, so maybe they're much better acquaintances, so to speak, not working in the same company than they did inside the company, because when they both stood at Walt Disney World on the Cinderella Castle court stage, that tension, you can cut it with a knife for the Walt Disney World 50th.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there was so much tension there. So much tension. So interesting stuff. But gentlemen, fantastic conversation. I always love talking to you guys. George, if you could let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. And Seymour Duck, if you could let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There he is. And thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today. Even if you disagree with us, we welcome all opinions here. Just be civil, just be nice. Your thoughts on Peltz losing, your thoughts on Iger and the board winning, your thoughts on Bill Ackerman, the succession plan, all that stuff that we talked about today. We would love to hear from everybody down below in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching OG 55.
세상은 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.